Welcome to Wisdom from the Aerial View. This is a podcast that is aimed at helping each of us to find peace from within, so that we, in turn, can help others find their peace too. Now, just what do we mean by that? We've been doing this podcast now for a while, and we've been using your book, Wisdom from the Aerial View, The Superpower That Can Change Your Life and This World, as our framework. But I, like several of our listeners, are still not quite understanding of what it all means. None of us wants to be stressed, and so we turn to things like meditation or yoga or hobbies or self-help books or maybe even gummies. So we would then turn to your book to find the magic bullet. But there is no magic bullet because, as you tell us, it takes work, it takes time, and it takes commitment. So the aerial view is neither fictitious nor supernatural. It's not a metaphor. It's real. Access to the aerial view is available to anyone at any time. All that is required is to release yourself from the street view, to become that disinterested observer with no stake in what's happening below. You temporarily cease to be a member of a team. Now, these are your words. These are your exact words. So I wanted to talk on this podcast. So let's spend some time so that you can explain to me and to our listeners exactly what we're doing here. What is the aerial view? And most important, how in God's name do we get there? I mean, we've been talking about this. It's called the aerial view. We talk about the aerial view. We talk about the street view. And we've gotten some queries from folks, from people who listen, and thank you for listening, about what it really means and how do we get there. So let's really spend some time today, if we can, talking about the aerial view and how do we get there.
Good morning, Enid.
Good morning, Mark.
It's interesting you should bring this up because I think I've told you that recently a friend who I've known for many years, a woman who actually used to work for me, and we've stayed close over the years. When I met her, she was a kid. Unfortunately, I was not a kid. So which means now that she's grown up, I'm really grown up. But anyway, so we had a chat about this recently, and I realized that I won't say I failed, but I've not succeeded at the level I would have liked to succeed in explaining what this is all about. First of all, I think I made a mistake calling this the aerial view because people seem to think if you just fly up to 30,000 feet, get in the jet and look down, or you get into, blue, what was that called? Blue Horizon. What was the name of Jeff Bezos' spaceship that goes up and down? Whatever it was. If you just go up and get that view that those ladies got from space, that's the aerial view. That's not the aerial view. The aerial view is not a specific place that you can fly to, drive to, take the subway to. It's a place that exists in parallel to the world we know. What it is a different perspective. That's what the aerial view is, a different perspective. And I believe an equally correct perspective. So we talk about the street view. The street view is where we live. Everything happens on the street view. This conversation is happening on the street view. Good things happen, bad things happen, fun things, not so fun things. We eat, sleep, drink. Everything happens in the street view. The aerial view is, and that's very real, of course. We all live here. We know it's very real. You don't have to, you fall off your bike, it hurts. That's the street view, right? And I dislocated my finger last week playing around with the bike rack. That's why I mentioned it. That's very real. That's very street view. But how you react to things like that, that's where the aerial view comes in. So you have a choice of how you want to react. And that's the key, right? So what happens in the street view is very real, but how you react to it, how you appreciate it, and what it does for your life, that's the aerial view. So we're going to start in the beginning. Spend a few minutes answering your exact question. What the heck is this aerial view and how do you get there? So the first thing we're going to spend 2 minutes on, or maybe less, or something like that, is the jukebox of time. We talk about that almost every week. And all that is, and it's important to understand what that is that every moment exists on one of the records in the jukebox of time. Each record is equivalent to a moment. So there are lots and lots of moments in time since the dawn of the universe till now. A lot of records. Each one is a moment of time. The cool thing about it that Einstein taught us is that they all exist. Those records exist forever, and they are playing simultaneously and forever. So every event that happened in any of our lives, or in fact that's happened in the existence of the universe, is still happening. There's not a past, present, and future, which is what we are used to, and which we would swear is what happens. as Einstein famously said, past, present, and future are just a stubborn illusion. Because that jukebox of time, every record in the past is still playing. Every record in the future already exists. So there's really not a past, present, future. There's almost an unlimited or infinite number of nows. Every now, every moment is existing in its place on that record forever and is playing forever. That's why we never really lose anybody, because you're always alive in the moments of your lifespan. So we're on the record. The day we're born is day one of our lifespan. The day we leave this earth, that's the last record. That's the last day of our life. So the difference between the two is our lifespan, right? So every moment of that lifespan is going on forever. It's not the past. It's happening. It's just like this moment you and I talking or people are listening. It's happening forever. So that's a very important concept to understand that time is not what we think. All moments exist contemporaneously and are alive and active forever. So you really don't ever lose anybody. Yes, we're not with people that are no longer on the records that we're on now. Their last record was some time ago. Sure, we don't see them. We're not talking to them. They're not listening to the podcast. We're not having dinner with them. But we are still doing all the things we did with them when they were alive. Those moments never go away. That's a really important concept. First of all, it's super comforting. You really never lose anybody in that sense. It is very real. We don't just have memories. We are still actively engaged in those moments with the people we love and we have lost. The next thing you have to understand is that all moments are equivalent. So there's no record. If we look at the jukebox of time, there is no record that's made of platinum or gold or shiny or, flashing lights where the other ones are just black vinyl. No, every record is black vinyl. Every moment is the same. We imbue certain moments with different values. For instance, you have a birthday and you have a party. And that's a great, yay, have fun, hop, hooray, hooray. Everybody's having a great time, right? We go, that's a great moment. And then something bad happens. You get injured. You get ill. You lose somebody. You have a financial loss. Whatever it is, we go, oh, that's bad, right? That's a bad moment. But that's not true. Those moments have no value by themselves. All moments are equal. This is a very, very important concept. Every event, every situation is just a thing. It doesn't have a value, good or bad, until we assign it that. I'll give you an example. Here's another good one. So we would say that if we had a nuclear war, God forbid, and we wiped out all of humanity, right? The cockroaches and other existing plant species that are immune to radiation or resistant to radiation would say, thank God we got rid of those humans. They just wrecked this planet. It used to be so beautiful. We all lived in harmony. Nature was a wonderful thing. And then they come along and they pump carbon dioxide in the atmosphere and they pollute the rivers and the streams and the oceans are full of plastic. These humans are the worst thing that ever happened to this planet. So thank God for that nuclear war. That horrible species is gone. So is a nuclear war a good thing or a bad thing? Well, we would say it's the worst thing, right? But those plants and animal species that survive would say, wow, finally those humans are gone, right? You understand the point? Everything is interpreted. There's no such thing. No event has a specific value till we assign it. Go ahead.
So let me see if I can simplify this to my little simple head. What you're saying is basically it's how we react to a particular situation that really matters. If there's nuclear war and my reaction is horrible, this is terrible, but the cockroach says, okay, that's good, thank you. But the cockroach says, hey, not a bad thing. So it's the way she, probably a she because we are the stronger. Yeah. Anyway, reacts. It's how she reacts to the nuclear war as opposed to how I react. So basically what you're saying is, I think, that the street view is the aerial view is how we react to what's happening in the street view.
Well, the aerial view is where we're going to put all this together. We're going to get there in a minute. But
okay.
we have to build some foundations that people really understand. So we started with the jukebox of time, right? All moments exist contemporaneously and all records are playing forever. We never lose anybody, number one. Number two is all moments are equal. No record is more shiny or sparkly or bigger. All moments are equivalent. We imbue certain moments with values. We say that's good, that's bad. And that's why I just gave this ridiculous nuclear war scenario, because what could be more? Who wouldn't agree that nuclear war is a terrible thing? But if you're an animal or a plant species that will survive that, you'll be thrilled that the humans are finally gone, right? Because let's face it, we have wrecked the planet for all these other species. There are hundreds of thousands of species. I don't know how many species there are, but a lot of them. And we've wrecked it for almost all of them, right? So in
Sure.
many ways.
Sure.
So they'd be happy to get rid of us. So that's the point. An event, moments of time just are. They don't have a value of good or bad. It depends on your perspective. So we, as humans, have a certain perspective. We say that's good and that's bad. I'll give you a little hint. If people want to really have a really happy life, don't ever label an event as bad. Don't say that's bad, because as soon as you say that's bad, you're going to slump in your chair. You're going to sigh. You're going to feel depressed. You're going to be unhappy, right? Once you put that label on it, so people say, well, of course things are bad. How can you say they're not bad? Because we assign that value to them. You have the option to assign any value you want. You could just say, and we're going to get to this in a second. This is the next step. It's just another moment of my life, right? At the end of the day. So now we're going to move to the next metaphor. So let's go to the next part. Because you were correct. We decide how we want to react to every situation. Very important. Now, there's something else that's really cool. And this is where we bring in the Viktor Frankl part, that we are in complete control of how we react. Just like Viktor Frankl decided that nobody could take his feelings and emotions and how he felt about something away from him, even in a Nazi concentration camp. We have that power. Each of us has the power to decide how we want to react to anything. It's not required to be angry or sad or depressed. It's not required. You have a choice. That's what Viktor Frankl is telling you, not Mark Klein, Viktor Frankl, right? And many other people who are way smarter than I am have said this in the past. That's a superpower. You get to decide. Now let's get to the metaphor of the book, the novel, because that really puts all this together. So when you're the protagonist in a book, so you're reading a book, you have a book in your hand, it's a novel, it's a story of somebody's life. Doesn't matter who it is. Let's say it's Winston Churchill or Steve Jobs or anybody who's had many biographies written about them. So you read this book and they start off always when they're born, and then you get their childhood and so on and keep going on. And so for us, we're just outside the story. We're not feeling anything that Winston Churchill or Steve Jobs is feeling, the ups and downs, right? We weren't orphans. We didn't have anything. We're just reading the book. We're in the aerial view. The protagonist, whether it's Winston Churchill or Steve Jobs, whoever that person the story is about, they're the protagonist. They're in the street view. They're experiencing everything that happens, daily lives for every human on this planet, right? They're in the street view. But we are outside it. We have the book in our hands. For us, to go, oh, that's interesting. Oh, that's interesting. Oh, that's interesting. And when we're done reading the book, we don't say page 112 is the most important page of this book. There's no such thing. Every page of every point of each of these people's lives was important. It made them who they are. Their childhood, their adolescence, their early adulthood, so on and so forth. These made them who they are. So in no one page, when we're done with the book, the biographies, do we say, the most important page is page 112? No, they were all interesting. That's the way we escape. That's the aerial view. Now, when we are the protagonist on our own story, we can pop off the page and become the independent observer and go, oh, this is interesting. I see what's happening here. This is not a fun event, but I appreciate it's just another day of my life. And we talked about aging a few weeks ago, and there's two ways you can look at aging. You can say, oh God, I'm so old. I had lunch yesterday with my oldest nephew, who I love to pieces. He was really, in a sense, my first child. My sister is firstborn. And I was 21 when he was born, and I was just so excited. And we've stayed close ever since. And he's now really grown up, right? So we're at a point where he needs medical tests that, when you get to a certain age. So he's really grown up. He's not a kid. He's not been a kid for a long time. And I look at him and I go, wow, I remember the day you were born, right? And all those moments we've had together. And so therefore, if you're that age, I'm really old, right? And you can say, oh, I can't do the things I did before. I can't run as fast. I can't jump. Maybe I can't ski, maybe whatever it is you can't do, or you don't feel up to it, right? Or you can say, oh, now I'm on page 375, and this is another page in my life. And when my story's all written, no one page is going to stand out. So I should embrace every page of my story because they're all important. So instead of lamenting this age, you should say, oh, now I've arrived at this point in my life where I'm experiencing this age. Isn't this interesting? Embrace it. Now, you might not like it. Maybe you have a severe medical problem. Maybe you can't walk. Maybe you're short of breath. I don't know. It could be a million things. And so you could say, oh, woe is me. Or you could say, well, okay, I've reached this point of my story where this is what's happening. Embrace it. Appreciate it. And that is true for everybody at every point in your life. When you recognize that from the aerial view, that you have a finite number of days, that you are here from the first record you're on to the last record you're on, that's your lifespan, right? And that we have complete control of how we react and feel about everything. And we get to assign a value to every event because by themselves, the events have absolutely no intrinsic value, right? Nothing is good or bad until we put a label on it. We put a bad label on nuclear war and the cockroach puts a good label on nuclear war, right? Labels are what we assign them. So if you want to be happy and fulfilled and have a meaningful life, don't assign bad to any event. You might not enjoy it, but step back, pop into the aerial view and appreciate it's just another page in your story. You don't have to lament it. It was always going to happen. The story has already been written. Every moment of time, every record in that jukebox already exists. So don't lament it like it's a surprise. It was always going to be this way. Appreciate it as one of the equal pages of your life. And when you do that, then every moment of your life has value. You don't diminish any moment. You appreciate every moment, even the ones that aren't so much fun. I've told you, I've gone into surgery and I started laughing before I went. I know. Well, this is an interesting thing. I dislocated my finger a week ago. My first reaction, I looked at it, of course, I'm a doctor. I knew immediately what had happened. I've seen so many x-rays of dislocated fingers. So I looked at it and went, oh God, I dislocated my finger. And then what did I do next, Enid?
You probably laughed.
I laughed because I said, okay, this hurts at the moment and it's not going to feel good when they put it back in there. But wow, how about that? On this day, Mark Klein at his point in his life dislocated his finger. It's just another page in my book. So you should appreciate all of them.
I know what I would do if I just. But here's when we were growing up, there was a magazine, and in the magazine, it was a guy whose name was Alfred E. Newman.
Alfred E. Newman.
And his thing was what? Me worry? However, okay, he never worried about a thing. But remember this, the name of that magazine was Mad Magazine.
Yeah, uh-huh.
And so when people who go into surgery laughing and people who dislocate a finger laugh, one would think maybe you're mad. So is there anything you even worry about?
Oh, sure.
Okay. So what do you do?
But I correct myself.
Okay.
I go, uh-oh, you shouldn't be worrying. You're getting this wrong. It's just another moment. So things that would have stressed me out even a few years ago, stressed me out much less. Now, again, I've told you about my, you know my wife, and
yes,
I'm sure anybody who's read this book or listened to this podcast knows that she's an amazing person and never worries about anything. And so I've learned a lot watching her. And then, of course, when I saw that she could do this, it became clear to me that everybody can do this. Everybody can do this, right? People go, no, I'm too weak. No. It's just a perspective. All you need to do is pop into the aerial view and understand what the world is. And I hope I've explained in the first 15 minutes of this episode, what the aerial view is, how you get there, because it's not crazy to laugh at these things. It's much better. I have an option, right? I can cry. Well, I probably wouldn't cry over a dislocated finger, but or pitch a fit because I was about to go pick up a bicycle. I was a whole day planned, things I was going to do. And I was going to, hang out with some friends the next day. I had all these plans, and now I couldn't do any of them because they all required some type of physical activity, and that was that. So I was, disappointed, but only for a second because I realized, okay, it's just a different day. It's not a worse day, right? It's not a worse day. It's a different day. That's what life is. It's a series of events. It's a series of moments, all of which are equal. We assign labels to them as we choose. It's our option to say. So why would you want to assign something as bad or sad? It just is. So it's not, I don't like losing people I love. 2 days from tomorrow, this podcast will air a few weeks from now. But anyway, I'm right at the 5th anniversary of losing my dog, my last dog. Now, why do I remember this? Because it was a very unusual date. So it always sticks in my mind. And I don't celebrate the day that people die. I like to celebrate the day they were born or some day something happened. I'm not one to focus on the day anybody or pets die, but it happens to stick in my head because it's an unusual date. Okay. So it's 5 years later and I love this dog as most people who have pets do. And, so what do I think about? Do I say, oh, I'm so sad. I really miss him. Or, boy, we had some great years together. That was fantastic. And they're still going on because I know in the jukebox of time, every record is playing forever. So I know we're still hanging out, playing ball in the backyard or still going for a walk, or he's still driving me crazy about some of these things are still happening. So I don't have to assign it. I don't have to be sad. I get to choose. We all get to choose. There's no intrinsic value to any moment. It's what we assign it to. So why would you assign something bad? Just say, you're going to cry. You're going to feel sad. Of course, we're emotional creatures. But then you can stop and say, okay, I don't have to dwell in this. It's just another day of my story.
But
As
let me
bad
ask
as
you-
it is.
But let me ask you this as a doctor. So you've had patients that come to you and you did a scan and you find out that something is not right. Something is happening. They have whatever. You discovered a lump. She's got perhaps breast cancer. Okay. That's not a good thing. That is a bad thing. Or is it not a bad thing? I mean, what's the differentiation here?
Okay. So, I want to do this without being callous because you know how I feel about my patients.
Absolutely.
And how I care about everybody.
Which is why I asked
so
you.
The first thing I think about is how am I going to help this woman through this moment? That's the first thing I think because I already know. So I'll tell you a story. A very, very close friend of mine, probably my wife's best friend. I don't think she'll mind me telling this story. We went on vacation with these people every year. We were very, very close. We had dinner together, sometimes both nights of a weekend. We were very, very close, right? Mm-hmm. And we had gone on a trip. This is a number of years ago. And we came back from the trip. And the next day she called me and said that she felt something in her one part, I think it was her neck or something. Anyway. So I said, okay. And as soon as she told me that, I'm thinking right away, I know this is going to be a problem. So I went right over to her house and I examined her and I knew pretty much what was going on. I said, come to the office tomorrow morning, first thing. So I had to come to the office. I did a sonogram. Long and short, she had, not only did she have cancer, but she had metastatic cancer. She had stage 4 cancer. So in many ways, the ending was already written. And you can imagine how I felt when I did this. I love this woman, right? So, and she was a nurse by training. So she looked at my eyes and she knew, we both knew right away, right? She already knew, quite frankly, even before she called me. Okay, so what do you do at that point? Okay, there's two ways to look at it. One, you can say, this is so terrible. This is tragic. And her husband felt that way and her children felt that way. I don't think she actually ever felt that way because she had a bit of an, I'm going to say has because we never lose anybody. She has an aerial view of this and she's probably watching me right now from wherever she is on the other side. And so you could look at it two ways. One, this is tragic. This is horrible. This is awful. Or you can say, I was always going to die because everybody does. Death is the greatest clue of all to the purpose of life. 100% of people die. It doesn't matter what you do, how powerful, how rich, what your accomplishments are. It doesn't matter. You're going to die. So everybody's got that last record. There's a last record for everybody. So it's not like it's a mystery or it's not a surprise. Like if you do everything right, you're going to avoid the outcome. No, everybody's going to die. So then you could say, okay, this is part of my story. Now I'm the last chapter or one of the last chapters of my book. This is how my life winds down. It's been a great life and I've done some fantastic things and I've had these wonderful children and grandchildren, whatever, career. I'm talking for her. I've helped so many people and now I'm on the latter chapter and here I am with breast cancer, metastatic stage 4 breast cancer. Okay. Yeah. There was always going to be something like this. It was always going to be an end. There was always going to be a last record. There's no way around it. So you have a choice at that point. It's not a surprise. You can say, woe is me. This is the worst thing ever. Or you can say, okay, I'm on the last chapter. I'm going to embrace it. I'm going to do what I can. If I want to, how do I want to spend my time? With my husband, with my children, with my grandchildren, with my friends, whatever it is I choose to do, right? It could be anything. Each of us gets the choice, but this was inevitable. It was going to happen. Embrace it. Understand it's part of your story. Now hop into the aerial view, be the observer, get off the page of being the protagonist in your story. Where you're in the street view and you're getting this terrible news and pop up into the aerial view and understand this was always going to happen. This was always going to be this story. There was always going to be a last chapter of your book. Embrace it. It's part of your entire story. You don't have to give up. You don't have to drop out. You don't have to curl up in your bed. It's part of your story. Finish the book. Run through the tape. It's in terms of a track analogy. We always tell when you're running in a race, don't slow down, run through the tape as fast as you can. That's what we should do in life. It's just another chapter of your book. That's what you see in the aerial view. Embrace it. You don't have to be miserable about it. You don't have to like it. I have friends who have some serious medical issues, right? And I spend a lot of time trying to help them with this because I want them to enjoy and have a meaningful life all the way till the end. I don't want them to say, oh God, now I have this. The countdown has begun And for some, the countdown is really like 15 or 20 years and they're already lamenting this, right? So that's the point. Get off the page, get out of the book, stop being the protagonist in the street view, get up to the aerial view, understand this is just another chapter in my book. It was always going to happen.
How did your wife's friend get there? I mean, you said that she was basically in the aerial view in many respects.
I think she was.
Why do you think that? Did she?
She and I had a even though Denise and her were best friends, and her husband and I, four of us were very close, but she and Denise were the closest. And her husband and I are still very, very close. But she and we saw the world in a similar view. So we went to Sequoia National Park together. She had already been diagnosed the year before with breast cancer. And she was doing actually pretty well on some of the newer drugs. She's doing very well. And we walked up to one of these giant sequoia trees. I don't know if people who have never touched a giant sequoia tree, you should put that on your list. And the two of us put our hands on the tree. And I have a picture of her hand on the tree. And you could feel the life in the sequoia tree. And we looked at each other, understanding the connection of everything. It just was one of those moments where you felt the connection of everything. And you realize you're just part of this whole. You're just one small part, but a very significant part of this whole. Your life span is the limited number of records, but the jukebox of time exists and exists forever. The records that you're on in your lifespan will be playing forever. All life is connected. Both, I was, we were in Milan a couple of years ago, and I was, they have the Duomo in Milan. It's this magnificent church, right? And it's one of the few places where you can go on the roof, and the roof is magnificent, and the views of Milan are beautiful. Now, this is where Mad Magazine is going to come, and you're going to think I'm crazy. We actually had a guide up there with a small group, and I put my hand on on a piece of marble, this beautiful marble on the top of the roof, and I instinctively just turned to my wife and I said, "Oh my God, it's alive." Now, it's marble, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay, but just remember, marble and us are made of the exact same elements, right? We're all made of the same stuff. What is the difference between life as we know it and something what we would call inanimate like marble? It's a really tricky question. It has to do with consciousness, which we don't understand a thing about. Is it spirit? Is it soul? I have no idea. I know it's something, right? But everything is made of the same stuff. Exactly. The quarks, the protons, the neutrons, the whole thing, electrons, we're all made of the same stuff, right? And so the difference between what is living and what's not is not so clear as you would think. So to people who are not crazy like me and don't think about this stuff all the time, they say, "Oh, this guy's crazy." But give it a little thought today, right? Just give it a little thought. Put your hand on a piece of wood or anything and realize it's made of the same stuff you are. No different.
Yeah.
What's the difference? So we're all connected. There's this whole story going on. That's the thing. In the aerial view, you appreciate there's a story. We're part of something bigger. You have a role to play. Your role is to make this transition from the infant that is helpless and requires totally dependent on something else to making that evolution, to changing the camera from me to everybody else, to going from inward focus to outward focus, to prepare for what's next. That's the key. In the aerial view, it's obvious. You see all of this.
So tell me about the marble. So you felt it was alive. You felt something that it was okay, and I get that. It's perfect because I know.
I know it's crazy. I agree.
It's not crazy. I went to the prom with a stick of wood once, but it was sort of interesting.
By the way, everybody, she did not go to the prom with me, right?
No, because you didn't invite me. But so you touched it and you felt it was alive, and then what? Was there some sort of spiritual reckoning there, or tell me?
I just felt that it's alive and that it's connected. I just felt connected. I mean, it's a very weird feeling, but then when you stop and think that people say, "Oh, you all come from stars." Yes, every element in the universe comes from the explosion of stars, right? But it's more than that. Every single tiny every element, every structure is made of the same components of an atom, right? All these things. We're all made of atoms, and we're all made of the same component parts of atoms. Yeah. Everything's the same. The only difference between something that's living and something that's not living, it's very difficult to describe. I remember in biology when I was in college, what is the definition of life? It was locomotion and whatever it is, a bunch of different things, right? It's really pretty tricky. It's a very fine line. It has a lot to do with consciousness.
Right.
I can't explain it, but all I'm saying to you is, and it doesn't even matter that much. I don't want to get too crazy on this, but the point is that there is something else. It's called the aerial view. And I've tried to, in this episode that seems to have flown by, to how to get there and what it means and why you can look at your life in a totally different way. Every moment is equivalent. Embrace every one. Run through the tape. Enjoy the last chapter just as much as the first 10th or 15th chapter. Enjoy them all. They're all part of the same story. And you get to choose what label you want to assign something. So try not to assign the label bad or sad to things because they don't have that value until you assign it. And as soon as you assign that, you're going to feel worse. So at least try to make it indifferent or just appreciate it as another event in your life as best you can.
Right.
That's
No,
it.
this is very important. I appreciate this. And we have run out of time. But this is a very important conversation, particularly because we've been talking about the aerial view for all these many, many weeks, and then to really try to understand exactly what it is. And this helped me, and I know that it's helped a lot of our listeners because the phones are ringing off the hook right now. I don't know if you can hear the. Oh, that's right. We don't have phones, and we don't have a date for the prom. That's woe is me. All right.
I had a terrible date for the prom. You too? Did you go to the prom?
I went to the prom. Yeah. Yeah.
All right. Yeah. Whatever.
Yeah.
We should have gone together. We would have had more fun.
We at least would have laughed. We would have been looking at everybody else in the aerial view
sure.
and looking down and say, look at these little lunatics. But anyway, let me end this, as I usually do, with a quote from your book. And it says, from the aerial view, we appreciate what has value and what does not, what adds to our mission and what detracts. Hate, violence, bigotry, anger, and revenge are ropes that bind us and impede our progress. Love, our most precious and elegant resource, liberates us and propels us forward toward the fulfillment of our purpose. Amen.
Amen.
Final words, Doc?
Thank you so much. I hope I didn't bore you to death on this one, but
no, I loved it.
I'm glad we talked about it. I hope it helped. Thank you, everybody, for listening. Thank you, as always, Enid.
Peace. Alfred E. Newman says, hi, Nut.
Okay, bye.